Everyone has a seat there. Alex, är vi redo? All right. Let's get the show on the road. Okay, we're moving some people from the back to the front here so they can see. All right, welcome to Flutter Stockholm. We have two talks today. I'm going to give a talk about custom drawing. So this turned out to be like a probably a series of two talks. So it will be more custom drawing than animations today. But I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. First, André will give his talk, and he's also from VNTRS, where we are today. So a big thanks to you for hosting this, or for hosting us today.
Don't you want to talk a little bit more about the community?
Yeah, so I'm going to, I think I'm going to talk about that in the end.
All
so
right.
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I'll put that QR code up afterwards so you can join Slack, and I'll post my slides there. Also because there's quite a bit of code, so if you want to try any of that stuff out, the code will be up there.
Yeah, I think I can then take this one.
Okay.
You want me to hold that to talk, right?
Yes. I'm going to clip the microphone on you. Perfect.
Good, hello everyone. My name is André, and while we wrong slide. So sorry. And yeah, there we go. And while we are setting up this presentation here, I'll talk a little bit about my. Oi, wrong. Where is the? I don't know what I'm doing. Oi.
Could it be worse?
Exactly, right? I had everything, all of this set it up, but yeah, anyway. So my name is André. I'm working at VNTRS for more than, for almost 3 years as a full stack developer. Usually I work, this is mirroring. Oh, I see. This was, wait a second. There we go. I work for, yeah, as I was saying, most of I'm a full stack developer. I work. I've developed most of the things I develop. It's web and also mobile, from front end and back end. Still haven't tried Serverpod. I hope that I'll take a look in the future, because I got super interested in taking a look at that. I just need to go to the screen, do this, and click here. Boom, there you go. Finally. Sorry for the technical issues here. I think we are ready to go. So why I'm here, I'm gonna present a little bit what we do in VNTRS, who we are, and of course I want also to talk about a little bit of what we've done in the company for in Flutter. So essentially, I'm going to try to bring a little bit of the Flutter phenomenon to our portfolio companies. So VNTRS itself is essentially a Stockholm-based company that, let me just remove this. Where is my mouse? Okay, so sorry. Yeah, we help companies and startups to grow and essentially innovate in the digital space. We have a mission is to empower startups and companies by offering not just tailored service in digital world, but also we help them like in investment. We also help them in product development. We also help them like in growth, design, anything that this startup needs. We are here to help and give a hand. We are also very passionate about turning like great ideas into thriving, successful ventures. So, and I think the best to talk a little bit about this is to come up to do questions to me, because I'm the worst person to do this type of presentations. I'm more a natural person, likes to gesticulate in face to face and give this boring presentation. That's why I put just random words here. But we like to be like long-term partnerships, and yeah, we have already like some technical expertise. We already like been doing this since 2017, if not mistaken. And one thing that we like to do is to grow. We like to create partnerships with all these clients. So we like to grow and work closely to our clients. My God, my English. Yeah, I mean all that stuff. We really like startups, and we really like to build apps. And speaking of apps, like our tech stack is mostly like backend and front end, and also mobile. Like on a mobile, we have React Native no one talks about it, and Flutter, and also we have our React.js on front end, and also Python Django, and also Node.js for the back end. So we kind of like to explore a little bit. Our developers in Ventures, we have like a quite broad knowledge in different areas. So, but what I want to talk about is one of our nice case studies that we built 2021. It's Joina or Joina. It's essentially an app where you can join and be part of a group to lose weight or increase your step countings monthly. You can join on a group by paying a fee. I think right now they are doing more like subscription method. And if you are the winner, you get some money out of it, and then with that money you can like even exchange it on your shop or even withdraw to your bank account. And some of the features I'm gonna explain more about the features. But essentially, when they came to us, what they had was a web and mobile product based on Angular and Cordova. I mean, I think people know that it's not a really good setup nowadays. Like if you hear about Cordova, you want to step back a little bit. And they already had like more or less around 1,000 users already using the product, where they were active being part of it. They already have some like very good design set up. So when they came to us, like already we have the design, but we want to build something new. They already had the weight loss challenge feature. They also already had like a social feature and the web shop. When we came in, and what they wanted is like, yes, we want to build a new app. So we ditched completely the web app, and we just sold them like a fully Flutter application, where we also came with the step challenge feature. So now you could be part either from a weight loss competition or a step counting competition. And they also wanted to integrate weekly challenges. So during the competition, you have these weekly challenges that you could do to have the chance to win some money out of it. And they also have this business challenge feature where like they could like partner it up with companies, and also the shop feature where you could like withdraw and exchange your money wallet to discounts and even to your bank account. As I said, like this is already the app that was built. We built it fully on Flutter. Some of the scenarios here, like the weekly challenges. I think this is like a group, I'm not sure, like the shop over there. And some social features here, and also like they are very focused on influencers. So yeah, I mean, and this was really beautiful, but then the challenges started because, yeah, I mean, we had this great idea. They already had the backend set up, so we were just changing. We thought, okay, we are just doing a migration from Cordova to Flutter, but since they wanted to have the step challenge, we thought, okay, yeah, let's integrate Google Fit and also Apple Health, and grab that data from the backend. So this is also another part. So essentially, right now, what they have, for example, when it comes to the steps challenge, you have all these integrations. When we jumped in, we helped them building the Google Fit and Apple Health integration. Right now, they are like one step further, where we pushed that our idea was to push them back to now they are scalable to have more integrations. So they were integration ready for other providers. And this is where now I want to join. Like, yeah, in the very beginning, it was like, yeah, let's go grab all the data from Google Fit and Apple Health straight away from the backend, like with API keys and so on. With Google Fit, that's possible, but not with Apple Health. They don't like it to share data. It's against their rules, and it's totally understandable. So essentially, this was our initial idea, and we were starting building with this in parallel while we were searching about it. At the end, we need to do some sort of a change here where the Flutter app was going to be responsible to fetch all this data from the provider that you're using on your phone. So, and this also helped to make more scalability, because the phone is, with the phone you're completely easy to just grab the data from all the other apps that you have. and then the phone will be responsible, the Flutter app will be responsible to send it to the backend. So this was the challenge that we faced, and we need to find like some approaches how we're going to do this. So like every time that you open the phone, you're gonna have like an update of, so this path will be happening, and then of course a lot of questions are to come up, like how are we going to make sure that the user will win the challenge, and if their steps are actually on this side, on the backend, like even if he doesn't open the app. So all of the challenges came to start with us, like they start to come with us, and we try to create as much redundancy to make sure that their steps always pass through the app and the app always sent to the backend. In last case scenario, contact the support. But yeah, I mean, this was actually one of the biggest challenges that we had on our step counting, and it was lovely. At the end, the client liked really to work with us. It was a really nice cooperation, and this took us more or less 4 months to develop the Flutter app from scratch, with all these integrations, with all these features that I mentioned. Another one that we recently got a challenge with was proof of concept, more or less, where we have to electricians and electrician managers, they have to work together with an app and also an admin panel, and they essentially, the admins from this electrician company, they receive AutoCAD SVG files, they upload these files, and essentially I forgot to take a screenshot from the Flutter app, but since this is just a proof of concept for the client to understand if it's worth it, if it works, and they need also to try, like the users need to try out, like if everything actually is like functional and if things are really worth to move on. So we got this challenge where essentially through the Flutter application, we grab these SVG files, we try to render as much as possible these SVGs and make them interactable inside of the electrician app, because the electrician will open the app, will check, oh, I'm on this project, I have this floor plan, as you can see, and it's going to be able to like touch on every single element, even the cables, and at the end is going to like update every single task inside of that element, so the manager knows and can track essentially what's going on there, even giving some status, give you some updates. And this was a good challenge. I think we are right now on a step that we need to review how to interact SVG files on the Flutter app, because not everything is very well set on stone. It's not straightforward, and this is where Viktor might be able to tell us a little bit more, because animation is also like drawing might be one of the approaches, because we have to probably split the entire SVG file into paths and small little elements, and render like one by one to make sure that we can interact with every single one of them. So it's like, I don't want to give like in much detail what's going on here, but what I want to show is like the challenges that we're facing with Flutter, and we are embracing it so much in a very like positive way, and we always come up with a solution, and at the end we always try to make sure that the client that works with us it's always on the same boat as us. We don't like to make something and then at the end, hey, there you go. No, we want to have the client always next to us. We want to update him like, hey, this is how it's going. Let's take this decision together. And at the end, the feedback that we've been having from this type of experiences, they've been very positive. So yeah, I'm gonna leave some time for questions, or maybe I don't have any more time. But if you want to make questions more at the end, like just come and mingle with me. And so yeah, if there's no more questions, I don't know, the questions? All right, I think then I'm gonna pass the word for Viktor. Thank you.
How big was your team?
For the join application was 2 Flutter developers, 1 lead, and the other one was just working on 50% for a couple of 2 months. So we ended up building the platform in 4 months, with only like 2 months of them having an extra developer doing this extra. Of course, together we have a project manager that makes sure that the budget and the timing is always like under the lines. And actually, it was quite interesting because in the beginning we descoped it so much to make sure that we build the essential, and at the end we ended up building everything. We ended up delivering everything that they needed from the very beginning. So yeah. Any more questions? Sure.
Can you speak the question into?
Okay.
So
Was this really well planned before you started writing code? I mean, did you have everything thoroughly planned before you started developing?
There's nothing planned until you start working with it. So me as a developer, I'll just not go and put my hands on code. I will talk with the client and make sure that his requirements are actually matching to our needs or to his needs. So we have all this process that probably sometimes will go in parallel, sometimes going in chunks. So some ideation phases, some growth. So sometimes we're going back, sometimes we're going forward. And yeah, I mean, not everything is 100% planned, but we try to make sure that all the plan is going to be always settled. And we do a lot of scoping. So every 2 weeks, we try to see if we are still inside the lines that we initially planned. If we see that something is are getting out of the boundaries, we talk with the client and we try to scope again to make sure that we always deliver in a nice way. So if there's any delay or any problem with the budget, we always going to try to be transparent with the client and to inform him like something is going on here, something was not ideally planned. But the way that we do it, we do it in a way that he's already expecting it, because he's always going to be on top of the problem with us, because he's going to always have meetings, weekly meetings with us to make sure that everything is going on the, as planned. So our plan here, we always planned as for the week, 2 weeks maximum. That's what we call plan. So if we plan for 2 weeks, yes, I'm going to say yes, we always have everything planned for 2 weeks.
So was your original budget, is that what you actually spent?
Sometimes it can go up, sometimes it can go lower.
No, but in this case, was that just out of curiosity? Did you have to go back and say, actually, that's going to cost you more?
That's a good question. I don't remember right now. It was 2021. I will say to you that, as I said in the very beginning, we estimated with a bigger budget, but at the end, we squeezed in a way that we were able to deliver as more than initially planned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that CAD project and how that exactly works. Like, how do you interpret the information in the SVG files, for example? The
AutoCAD file, I mean, the AutoCAD, the other team will pick up an AutoCAD file and will export it as an SVG.
Right.
So what we get already is an SVG file that then we modulate it in a way to make sure that it's compatible for both web and also mobile application for the Flutter.
Okay.
But then, as I said, then we need to split. The next phase that probably we are planning to do is to split this SVG file into very small chunks so we can interact with every single piece of the code.
Right. Okay. Yep.
I'm very curious about that last part, and also very impressive to build that app in 4 months on so few developers. Very impressive. So you're basically going to build an SVG parser in Flutter.
We've been trying already with the SVG parsers that's already in the community, but we've been having not the best result. So maybe at the end, yeah, we might need to do it, or we might reach a point that we say to the client, yeah, this is already going over budget. This is still on a proof of concept idealization to the point that, yeah, maybe this is actually not a good idea. So right now, everything is like very trying to understand how we should move forward or not.
I will follow that closely because we need that in Flame too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Then let's move on to Viktor Stahl. Thank you so much, everyone. think, yes. Oh,
All right.
thank you.
All right. So I may switch a little bit between sitting and standing because my back is not super happy. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my original idea for the talk was to look into doing a little bit more fancy animations in Flutter. But to do fancy animations, we may need to start doing some fancy drawing. So this may be like a two-part talk, and I'm going to be talking more about the custom drawing part today. But the sort of idea for this talk formed with, if you look for like animations in Flutter, usually what you will see is something like this. I'm sure you've all seen this animation. And okay, this is an animation in Flutter, but what we really want to do is something more like, let's see, like this, right? So how do we do this? And I'm sure Flame can do a whole lot of this, but but I'm going to talk a little bit about how we draw things in Flutter, and this is also how things are drawn in Flutter, sort of under the hood. When you use a component or a widget, like you draw a box with a shadow or something, how does that actually work in Flutter? Okay, let's see if I can move on to the next slide. Yeah, here. And one way to do that is with a custom painter class. So it's super easy to set it up actually. You just create a class that extends the custom painter, and then you need to override the paint method. And the paint method you will fill with whatever custom drawing you want to do. And there's a should repaint method. If that returns true, it will like redraw everything. But it will always draw everything at least once, or when you rebuild your widget. So even if you return false, it will draw the stuff in the paint method. But if you want to do an animation, you may want to work more with that, turning that to true at times to make sure everything is redrawn. So that's checked every frame, every like single picture that's displayed on your display. And to draw that custom painter, you need to also add a widget to your widget tree. And here it's really the custom paint. I hope you can see in the back. I tried to make the code as big as possible. And I just placed it in a sized box because you need to like make sure it fills the screen, because it will take the size of whatever the component, the parent component. So this is basically how you set everything up. So this is to start. I'll put all this in the Slack channel if you want to look at the slides, and it's super easy to start playing around with this if you want to. So let's look at what we can do. Like the main thing in the paint method is the canvas you get here, and it's on the canvas you can draw all sorts of things. And you also get a size, that's just the size in pixels of your drawing area. So basically what a canvas class can do, it can draw images and graphics. We can also set a clipping, and that will clip everything sort of that we draw below after we set the clipping. Everything we draw afterwards will be clipped to that. But we can also save and restore our transformation matrix. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that works. And that's basically tells us where on the screen we want to draw something. We can also save layers. So if we want to, say, apply an effect to more than one thing we're drawing, we can do that with a layer. I'm going to show that too. So let's dive in. This is probably the simplest example you can do, right? Draw a circle. And there's some components in this. So we have the canvas, which has a draw circle method that we call. And we use the offset to basically center it on screen. And we set the size to the width of the screen in half. So that's like the radius of the circle. So we center it in the middle of the screen and let it have the width of the screen. And then we also have most of these methods also takes a paint. And it can be good to know that like the paint, typically you may not want to do it like this. You may want to cache the paint because that's a little bit expensive to create. It's more expensive to create than other Flutter objects, so that can be good to know. But for simplicity, I just added it in like this. But if you want to do a lot of stuff with high performance, you should think about like caching your paints and having that as like some static methods or static variables somewhere. So in the simplest form, you can just set the color of something that you're drawing, like the circle in this case, or if it's this can be a polygon, or there's a whole bunch of drawing methods. Another way to draw the very same circle is this. So what happens here is we basically draw the circle at the origin, but we move the origin first. So the canvas has a way to translate where we draw things. So there can be, there's different methods we can use, like translate. That is, we just move it, shift where we're drawing, like we do here. It can be, we can rotate if we want to draw something with a rotation, or it can be scale. Or you can use a transformation matrix. So I'm not going to cover that today, but with the transformation matrix you can also do a little bit of like 3D effects, so you can like move things in 3D space. Or if you want to do something fancy. So the way it works, basically it's store your transformation in this transformation matrix, and then you multiply them together to create like a compound matrix that you use when you're drawing. So basically here we just move where we're drawing, and then we draw the circle. So why is that useful to do it that way? So imagine we are painting a car. So I made this beautiful little car that is done by drawing two rectangles here and two circles. So we have basically the shape of the car and the two wheels. But maybe we want to draw more than one car. So I made this little method, which is paint car at, where we take a position. So the canvas also has the ability, you can save the state of your canvas and you can restore it. So if you, so here when we draw the car at a specific position, we'll first save the canvas, so we like the current position of it. Then we can do a translation. Then we paint the car. So we translate it to where we want to paint the car, and then we paint the car. So this is like the same method we had before. And then after that, restore the canvas. So typically when you do a sub method like this, you probably want to, if you change the matrix, you want to restore it. Otherwise, everything you draw afterwards will be also translated. So if you forget that, it'll like mess up your drawing. And then we just made a paint method to use the paint car at, and we added three cars. So say we want to take this to the next level, and we can draw them also with a rotation. So the only difference here is that we also add a rotation. And it's good to know when you typically do computer graphics, you work with radians instead of degrees. So that means like 360 degrees is 2 times pi. So that's why I used math pi to sort of take in 8s instead. 45, 22 degrees. or 45, yeah, 22.5 degrees. Just as an example. And here it's very important in the order you do things. That's something you easily mess up. So if you first move to position and then you rotate and draw something, this will happen. But say I rotate first and then I move, then the whole view will be rotated and you like move sideways and not like in a straight line like you might expect. So that's something to keep in mind there. But yeah, it's not super fun to draw cars like that. We want to draw nice little cars. So let's look into how we can do that. And there is a method called draw image that allows us to draw an image. So here I have an image of the car. Everything else is the same. I basically just replace. I use the scale and so you can also scale the canvas. So the car was a little bit too big when I loaded the image. I scale it down and translating it. I probably rotated it, so it may not be exactly this code, but anyway, the key point here is that you have like the draw image, which takes an image and a paint and the position where you want to draw it. And it can be good to know that when you draw the car, that's probably why I did it this way. So you may need to translate the position. The position is always the top left corner of the image. So if we want to work like rotate a car around its center, we'll need to shift it with a translate. And you can get the width and height from the car image. But we also somehow need to load these images, and for some reason they made it super tricky for us. So you just need this piece of code that is way too complex. But that's how you load an image from an asset, and you get a UI image. So you need to import .ui. It's not the same. There's also another a widget called image. So that's a little bit confusing. They named them the same, but they put them in different packages. So you typically import .ui as UI, and there you have the image. So you refer to it as UI.image. That's how most people will do that, but I'm sure there are other ways. And then when you have this little method, you can just load the car image by calling it and passing in the name to the asset. Right, but imagine that we want to draw lots of cars very, very fast. If we just call our draw car method 1,000 times, or maybe 10,000 times, that can be pretty slow. So there is a call for drawing lots of image, or from the same image, very, very fast in many places, and that's called draw atlas. So this is a little bit tricky if you haven't used it, but it's not as, if you see an example, it's not as tricky as that one would think at like a first glance. So what you need to do that, if you look here, we need an image, the car image, and we have a set of transforms, and the transformations are called RS transform. So that's a type of matrix that is not the full matrix, but it's a sort of a simplified matrix they use just for this call. And that has a method. So here, basically, we create 1,000 places to draw the car, and 1,000 transforms, and you also need to add rectangles from where in your source image you're going to draw it. So here I just draw the whole car, so they're all the same. But the sort of interesting part is the transform part. So you just pass in the rotation, scale, then translation, and the anchor points of it. and the anchor point is sort of the point we rotate the car. So what we can do with this like simplified transforms is just scale, translate, and rotate, and that's it. So I just take random positions for x and y, a random rotation that's between 0 and 2 pi, which is 360 degrees, and a random scale. And then once you have all that set up, you can just call the draw atlas. It will just draw all these images at the same time very, very fast. So that's a little trick. So if you want to do, this is typically something you use if you draw particle systems or something where you have lots of things that's coming from the same image. Also wanted to show a little bit how you draw a little bit more fancy stuff. Like if you want to do, I didn't spend much time picking colors, as you can see, but this is just a simple example how you add a shader to a paint. So you use the paint here to do a linear gradient, and then we just use the drawRect method, and we include the paint which has the gradient shader. So in the last version, or I guess it's like a little bit work in progress for Flutter, but they're building like a whole shader system for Flutter. That's I may do a talk about that a little bit later on, or maybe there'll be some other talk about it. But that's something that you can do really cool effects with. So this is like the simplest that's been there from the start in Flutter, but now you can draw super advanced stuff with that. But this is like the basics. And when you draw, you also have access to all the blend modes. This is very similar to in Photoshop. You have different blend modes. I don't know if you've played around it with different layers. You can set the blend mode. So the standard blend mode is called source over. It's just the source image is the image you draw, and the destination image is the image you draw it to. So this part of the code is just where we set the blend mode. And we used source over plus that adds two colors together. That can be super useful if you want to do like fire effects and stuff like that, because it gets brighter and brighter and brighter when you add things together. Multiply multiplies colors, and then there's like a whole long list of this. So I just took a few examples. Can be cool to know that this is possible to do. There are also a few filters. There are like 3 filters, and there's actually just one that's I feel is useful, and that's the blur. But that can be pretty convenient to do if you want to blur out an image. You just add an image filter. Yeah, I should have maybe showed an example by that, but you just pass in there's an image filter class that you can set the blur to whatever size you want. So that's pretty easy. All right. I wanted to say a few words about the clipping too. So and how that works. So when you work with the canvas, you can also set a region that you're clipping to. So here, it's really easy to do rectangles or rectangles with rounded corners. So this is an example. rect is a rectangle with rounded corners. So it takes a rectangle and a corner radius, but I think you can specify the radius for different corners and a little bit more there. So you can just use the canvas clip rector, like a bunch of methods for setting the clip region on the canvas, and anything you draw after that will be clipped. So that makes our paint many cars method being clipped to that rounded rectangle. Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to mention how you work with is the save layer. And that allows us basically to create a layer, and we do that with a save layer method. And the save layer, we can also apply a custom paint to it, which allows us to do an effect. So in this case, I applied a blur. So this is how you do the image filter blur, just at the image filter. And then I translate it down a little bit. And then I paint our cars, but they're like in this clipped rectangle. So that makes a sort of a blurry shadow that's really the same image we draw on top afterwards, blurred out. And then afterwards you restore the layer. That's sort of when everything in that layer gets packed together. And what will happen inside Flutter actually renders this to its own texture. So it will be like a render to an image in memory. And then we apply the effect, and then it's rendered to the screen. So that's a cool way to create effects like this. But you can do like blurs, or you can apply other types of shaders, I'm sure, with the whole new shader system. Yes, so that was pretty much what the things I wanted to go through today. And with these techniques, you can build very complex animations. You just need to piece them together. And I think I'll save that for a future talk when I can show a little bit more how to put this into animations too. So that was somewhat short talk today, but it's pretty fun to start playing around with, so I can recommend doing that. And this should give you some good pointers on where to start. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Yeah, Lucas.
Shocker.
Did I get stuff wrong?
No, absolutely not. It was great. Very, very, very good talk. But you missed explaining one thing that is very nice in your code. If you go back one slide.
Yes.
Because a lot of people that are just coding Flutter and are not using Dart that much, they usually miss this notation you have on line 4 here. So if you could explain that a bit for the people that don't know what it means, it would be great, because I think it's so beautiful.
Okay. I learned about that yesterday from ChatGPT, believe it or not.
I can explain it if you want.
Yeah. No, I know. So it basically combines an offset with a size and makes a rectangle from it. So that's it was actually pretty convenient. Yeah. So you can actually override that can be good to know. If you make classes, you can override operators like the ampersand. There's a bunch of them that you can override. So this is probably overridden on the offset class. So if you combine it with another object that is a size, it'll return a rect. So you can make this kind of things for your own classes too. So it's not something that's built into the language specifically for offsets and rectangles and sizes. It's something you can add to any class. But for use cases like this, it's pretty neat.
When it comes to performance, look into this crazy example, right?
Yeah.
How much do you know regarding like performance? Like, how does Flutter handle and Dart handle this huge amount of images being rendered and being loaded? First of all, like I want to understand, first you you loaded the asset. So the first question would be, will it be loaded as many times as image as you have, or is it going to be like cached? And then the second question would be how much it can go deeper when it comes to saving memory and space when it comes to render. Will the render of this unique image will be then be memorized to then be able to duplicate this? Or do you know, what can you tell about this?
All right, so to break it down with the first part of loading images, so the way it works is basically it's up to you to handle any caching. But I mean, loading is as fast as I think as like any app platform. It's probably pretty much the same. For caching, you probably want to save the things you use a lot in memory. I know there are a few packages on PubDev that may help with that. I think if you do something like this, maybe if you're building a game, you probably want to load all the assets up front and just have them in memory. And maybe you have different levels, right? And they have specific graphics they want to load or sort of deload when you need them. But to get like what you don't want to do is load images from the disk while you're running in the game, because that will, create lag.
I got a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
Because in one of the earlier slides, you were using like a texture atlas for that, right? So I guess then you can, does Flutter have support for atlases where you have one image that contains like a bunch of different sprites? I could use that technique that you used here when you draw a bunch of the same to kind of tell the atlas, I want this part of the atlas which contains a different sprite and this part of the atlas, etc. So you only load like one big image with smaller
Yes,
pieces.
you can do exactly that, and that will be like the most efficient way to store it in memory too. Because images maybe it depends on devices, I'm not sure, but on many devices, or at least it used to be that way, like the width of the images could only be like a multiple of 2. So or not multiple, it can be like 2056 or 512 or 1024. So if you have an image that is just a little bit bigger, then you have like all this wasted space. But if you have the multiple images in the same image, you can sort of pack them together much more efficiently. And there are actually programs that you can pass them a bunch of images and they will pack them together, and it creates like an XML file or something with like the rectangles for each image and stuff like that. So I'm sure Flame has support for that. Yes, it has.
So that is actually something that iOS and Android is doing very bad. They are insanely bad at having big images in memory. So all of a sudden, people will just come in to Flame and they're like, "Why? Well, like nothing is working anymore." And they have added something more to their sprite atlas, and their image is too big for the operating system to handle. But there are no errors on anything. So be careful when creating very big images. But there are lots of great tools out there to create these kind of sprite atlases, as they're called.
Yeah. So that way you can use that draw atlas, or what's it called, method I had. Draw atlas. So it's made specifically for doing that very fast. And for performance, I haven't really played around with a new renderer, but like the old renderer, they actually built specific paths for doing all this stuff, like super fast. So performance for doing this should be really good, and I'm sure it's even better now with they're making a new renderer for Flutter called Impeller. I can say a few words about how that actually works under the hood, which is pretty cool in Flutter. So you have this sort of high-level API. I mean, it's a little bit lower than the rest of the widget system, but below that there's like a few more layers, right? And there are like the renderer. You can replace the different blocks with native renderers for different platforms. So that means if you are on iOS, it will use Metal. If you're using Android, it will be Vulkan, or what's it called? I'm not sure. But it will be different for different platforms, or you can even do like software rendering, which can be great for testing, for instance, when you may not have like a specific graphic card. So it has sort of a plug and playable backend to it, and the unified interface on top, which is pretty nice to work with, rather than doing like the very low level stuff yourself, and then you need to do it differently for different platforms, which will take a lot of time. So this is sort of a nice middle path, I would say, and it's still very performant. All right. In that case, I'm going to put that code up on Slack. So if you want to play around with it, I'll do that later today. You can join the Slack with that QR code. Right now we don't have another meetup planned for this spring. It may or may not happen, we'll see. But keep an eye out on the meetup page. And if you either want to host a meetup or if you want to give a talk on some topic, come talk with me or with Alec, and we'll make that happen. Yeah, and I'm sure we have a little bit more time we can spend here mingling and finish off the pizza. All right, thank you.